The following lesson is brought to you by LSF. A skilled nation is a prosperous nation. Welcome everyone. Today we will be looking or discussing an introduction to the novel The Life of Pi by Yann Martel. Alright, The Life of Pi by Yann Martel, a wonderful book, novel to get stuck into, a wonderful story dealing with a young man's struggles and journey, metaphorically speaking, of course, through life and all the difficulties that he has to overcome and the lessons he learns along the way. It's a very fantastical story, meaning very amazing things happen, but though it is very far-fetched and many of these events will never happen to us, we can still relate to many aspects of this book in our daily lives. So let's get into it. Alright, before we discuss the book, we need to look at the background of the author. Why or what influenced him to write this book? Firstly, the author Yann Martel was born in Spain to French-Canadian parents. He grew up speaking both French and English, and the third point is very important. He studied philosophy. So if you understand philosophy, it's the subject of thinking and viewing the world, how we understand the way people think and how the world works, if you will. At Trent University in Ontario, and later spent a year in India visiting religious sites and zoos. It's amazing how India is always viewed as a very spiritual place, and through Yann Martel's journey to India and witnessing these various religious events and visiting quite a few zoos, it formed the backdrop, the influence, the inspiration for writing this novel. So that's very important. Now the background of the novel. The novel is set in a time with where India has or is experiencing many political instabilities. And at the time, Indira Gandhi, not Mahatma Gandhi, was found guilty of election irregularities. So there's a lot of instability, and why this is important is that this is an actual event that happened in global history, and it also acts as the motivation, one of the events that sets Pi to make certain decisions, why he and his family would eventually want or choose to leave India and set various events into motion. Alright, setting. Now when we discuss setting, we look at two aspects. Number one is place. Number two is time or time frame, where era, if you will. And this book takes place in a town or a city or a town in India called Puducherry. Although most of India was, or at the time, a British colony, Puducherry was heavily influenced by the French. And with that, if you look at the third point, it is very culturally diverse, meaning there's so many different cultures, religions, races, people interacting, living together in this town. And if you look at what we mentioned before, the political instability within India at the time, Pi and his family decide to move to India, and that is crucial because that is the cause, if you will, for lack of a better word, as to why certain things happen, or he's put upon this path, leading him with the idea of him and his family having a better life in Canada, in the West. But of course, as in many things in life, things don't work work out quite as we hope for or plan. Alright, there are multiple settings, so there are different eras and different times where this novel takes place, and we will see that very shortly when we mention how the story is being told. So firstly, the first setting is Pondicherry Zoo. Pi is privileged enough to belong to a family that owns a zoo with many animals. 2. Setting is placed on a ship, a giant ship, the Tsimtsum, taking Pi, his father, his mother, and his brother Ravi, and all their animals to India. The Pacific Ocean, that is a large chunk of the novel where Pi is left stranded in a lifeboat, floating around trying to survive the dangers of the Pacific Ocean. Towards the end of the book novel in Mexico, and of course we'll see that certain aspects of the book and the novel is set in Canada. Okay, so now we looked at the setting, and now how does that link up with the story? And now we discuss how the story is being told. Firstly, a narrative technique is how the writer has chosen to tell the story to the reader. Firstly, quite commonly, is chapters. Each chapter relates a part of the story leading to its conclusion. Yann Martel also uses flashbacks and flash forwards. Now, if you looked at what we discussed previously, there are different settings in the book, different places and times. Now, flashback refers to a time that is mentioned in the past, and flash forward is a time or an event that happened or that happen in the future, all told when relating a story. And foreshadowing is where the novelist, the author, in a very clever way, has given various subtle hints as to what will happen in the future, and he leaves it up to the reader to have almost an idea, a very subtle idea as to what is yet to come. Now, the novel is also divided into 4 parts. The author's note. Now what that tells you is the story is narrated or told from a perspective to a author, a fictional author who is writing a book. So Pi Patel is relating his experiences to an author, a fictional author whose name is never mentioned. Maybe it's Yann Martel, you never know. Maybe he's writing from his perspective. That's for you to analyze. Part 1, in Toronto, Canada. Now, previously we spoke about foreshadowing and flash forwards. We will flash forward to Pi relating a story from his past while he's living in Toronto, Canada, which takes you to a flashback when he was younger, living in Pondicherry. A large section of the book is based in the Pacific Ocean and all the events that takes place there and all the drama and lessons that Pi learns, and that is being told as to his experiences on the Pacific Ocean. And lastly, Mexico. At the end of the novel, Pi is recovering in an infirmary or a military hospital or in Mexico. So tomorrow or during our next lesson, or when the next lesson happens, or when the next video comes out, we'll be discussing probably the most essential part of any sort of literature, and that is themes. Okay. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope to see you soon.